The small-town diner buzzed with chatter, silverware clinking against plates, the scent of sizzling bacon and fresh coffee thick in the air. Jack Calloway stepped through the door, adjusting the brim of his faded Marine Corps cap. No one looked twice at him, which was exactly how he liked it. He wasn't there for attention, just a meal, some quiet, and maybe a slice of pie if they had any left. Jack moved toward a booth near the window, his old bomber jacket creaking as he slid into the seat. His knees ached, a souvenir from a life spent running toward danger instead of away from it. He grabbed a menu, scanning it with an easy patience. That was when he noticed her. The waitress. Young, early 20s, blonde ponytail, sharp attitude. Jack didn't need to be a mind reader to see it. She was already irritated. Maybe it was the lunch rush. Maybe she'd had a bad morning. Or maybe some people were just like that. She came over, not bothering to smile. Didn't introduce herself. Didn't offer the usual, "What can I get ya?" that came with good service. Instead, she slammed a glass of water on the table, spilling some onto the menu. Jack lifted an eyebrow, but didn't react. He'd dealt with drill instructors who could break a man with a single look. A rude waitress wasn't about to ruin his day. "You ready to order?" she asked, bored, impatient. Jack nodded. "Yeah. Coffee, black, eggs, over easy, bacon extra crispy, side of hash browns, and if you've got any left, a slice of apple pie." She snorted. "Hope you've got enough for all that. We don't do charity meals here." The words hung in the air, sharp, biting. A few customers glanced over, sensing the tension. Jack exhaled slowly, tapping his fingers against the tabletop. He could handle disrespect, but there was something about the way she said it, the way she smirked, that told him this wasn't just a bad day for her. This was personal. The waitress, her name tag read Lindsay, jotted his order down with an exaggerated sigh. Then she paused, eyeing his old bomber jacket and his Marine Corps hat. "What's with the jacket? Did you dig that out of a donation bin, Grandpa?" This time, a few chuckles actually rippled through the diner. Jack's grip tightened around the edge of the table. He could feel it. That old fire in his gut, the one that used to surface when he saw young, cocky recruits disrespecting the uniform. But he kept his cool. Because discipline wasn't about proving yourself. It was about knowing when to fight and when to let things slide. And this wasn't a battlefield. So Jack just leaned back in his seat, nodding once. "Jacket's been with me longer than you've been alive, sweetheart." Lindsay rolled her eyes and scribbled down his order. Yeah, I'll get your food. Try not to break a hip while you wait." She turned and walked off, shaking her head. Jack let out a slow breath, shaking his head. He'd seen it all before. Young people with no respect for those who came before them. Didn't bother him, not really. But when she came back with his check, before even bringing his food, she let out a mocking laugh. "Jack Calloway, huh? Sounds like some wannabe war hero or something." And just like that, the entire diner went silent. Forks froze midair. Coffee cups hovered inches from lips. And behind the counter, someone heard that name. Someone who knew exactly who Jack Calloway was. The kitchen doors swung open fast. A tall, older man with graying hair stepped out, a look of pure disbelief on his face. Jack recognized him instantly. Ray Henderson, the owner of the diner. But more than that, a man whose brother served in the same unit as Jack decades ago. Ray's eyes flicked between Lindsay and Jack, piecing together what had just happened. His face darkened. "Calloway? No way. Captain Calloway?" Jack sighed, tilting his head. "Been a long time, Ray." Lindsay froze. For the first time since she opened her mouth, she looked uncertain. "Wait, you two know each other?" Ray didn't answer, didn't even look at her. Instead, he turned to Jack, his expression shifting into something like awe. "You saved my brother." The words were quiet, but they carried more weight than anything spoken in that diner all day. Jack shook his head. "I did what I had to do." Ray looked around the room, his voice louder now. "This man right here pulled my brother out of an ambush in Afghanistan. He carried him on his back through a damn minefield." The entire diner gasped. Lindsay's face drained of all color. And just like that, everything changed. Jack never wanted attention, never wanted glory, but respect. That was different. And now the whole diner knew exactly who Lindsay had been mocking. The diner was dead silent. Every pair of eyes was locked onto Jack Calloway, a man who had walked in as just another quiet customer, but now sat like a giant among them. The weight of Ray Henderson's words still hung in the air. This man pulled my brother out of an ambush in Afghanistan. He carried him on his back through a damn minefield. Jack didn't react to the gasps or the wide-eyed stares. He'd never been one for hero stories, because war wasn't about heroes. It was about survival. And Jack, he had survived. But Lindsay? Lindsay looked like the floor had just dropped out from under her. She stood motionless, her lips slightly parted, like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. Jack finally leaned forward, picking up the check she had slapped onto the table earlier, looking at it with mild amusement. "Didn't even let me eat before bringing the check, huh?" Lindsay swallowed hard, her previous arrogance nowhere to be found. She stammered, her voice suddenly a lot quieter. "I didn't know." Jack nodded slowly, setting the check back down. "Number you didn't." Lindsay's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "I mean, it's not like I was trying to be mean." Ray's booming voice cut her off. "Not trying to be mean? You humiliated a war hero in front of a whole room of people." Lindsay flinched. Jack sighed, rubbing his temples. He had no interest in watching someone get chewed out on his behalf. So he leaned back and fixed Lindsay with a level stare. "You got a problem with veterans, kid." Her eyes flickered with something defensive, like she wanted to snap back, but she hesitated. Then finally, she muttered, "My dad was in the army. He left when I was 6. Jack's jaw tightened. Now it made sense. This wasn't about him. This was a grudge she had been holding on to for years. "And you think that means we're all the same?" he asked, his voice even. Lindsay's face twisted, like she wasn't sure what she believed anymore. Jack sighed. He had met too many people like her. People who saw the uniform, but not the man wearing it. He could have walked away, could have let her figure it out on her own. But something about the uncertainty in her eyes told him this was a lesson she needed to learn. So he tapped the table once, getting her attention. "Listen, kid, I didn't fight for a paycheck. I didn't fight for medals. I fought so people like you could live your life however the hell you wanted." Her lip trembled, but she said nothing. Jack leaned in slightly. "You don't have to like me, you don't have to thank me, but you damn well better learn some respect." Lindsay nodded stiffly, looking away. Ray was still fuming. He turned to Jack, shaking his head. "Captain, I can't believe this happened in my diner. You shouldn't have to deal with that kind of treatment anywhere." Jack shrugged. "I've dealt with worse." Ray shook his head, firm. "Not here, not in my place." He turned back to Lindsay. "You're fired. Get out." Lindsay snapped her head up, panic flashing in her eyes. "Wait, what?" "Ray, come on. It was just a stupid mistake." "A mistake? You don't talk to people like that," Ray barked. "Especially not someone who put his life on the line for this country. You should be ashamed of yourself." Jack sighed, holding up a hand. "Hold on." Ray paused. Jack turned back to Lindsay, studying her carefully. She was young, still figuring out life, and Jack had seen enough loss to know that second chances were worth something. "Don't fire her." Ray and Lindsay both snapped their heads toward him. Lindsay looked shocked. "What?" Jack shrugged. "She needs a lesson, not a ruined future. Let her make it right." Ray folded his arms, considering it. Then, finally, he exhaled. "Fine, but you're working for free today, Lindsay. Every meal, every plate, until Captain Calloway says otherwise. And you're gonna learn some damn manners while you're at it." Lindsay nodded stiffly, swallowing her pride. Jack leaned back in his seat. "Now, how about that pie?" Lindsay brought Jack's food 10 minutes later, setting it down gently this time. She still looked embarrassed, but she wasn't avoiding his eyes anymore. Jack took a bite of his eggs. Perfect. He didn't say anything at first, just let the silence sit. But right before she turned to leave, he spoke up. "You still holding on to that grudge?" Lindsay hesitated. Then, quietly, she said, "I don't know." Jack nodded. "That's a start." She walked away without another word, and for the first time that day, Jack figured she had learned something worth remembering. As Jack finished his meal, he waved down Ray for the check. Ray grinned, shaking his head. "Not a chance, Captain. This one's on me." Jack chuckled. "You Henderson boys always were stubborn." Ray nodded toward Lindsay, who was wiping down a table nearby. "You taught her something today." More than I ever could. Jack shrugged, tossing a few bills on the table as a tip anyway. Some lessons you don't learn in books. As Jack walked out the door, he heard Ray mutter one last thing to Lindsay. You see the kind of man you just insulted? That's what real strength looks like. Not loud, not flashy, just earned. Jack didn't look back, didn't need to. He climbed onto his bike, fired up the engine, and rode off into the afternoon sun. Because he didn't need anyone's thanks, just the road, and a little bit of peace.